Hello YouTube, Mariel here. Just would like to talk about a couple of things that have happened to me this past week. And it actually starts last week on Wednesday, 26th of April 2017, when I organized a session with my daughter's counselor to get an update on her progress, as well as to get advice on what is the best way to approach any kind of conversation with my daughter and how to handle my daughter's constant baiting and accusations. The counselor gave me a time for the following day to meet with her. So the next day, when I get there, I think it was about 5 minutes after I got there that the wolf shows up. I was in shock, and I just sat there trying to figure out mentally how this could be happening. Eventually, the counselor shows up with my daughter in tow, and that's when I realized that this was actually a family session. It was not what I had expected, a one-on-one with me and the counselor, so that I could ask the questions and the questions that I had and talk over the concerns as well that I had. So I had no choice. Well, I felt at the time I had no choice, but later on my therapist told me that I should have said right there and then that I was not comfortable with this, and so that the counselor could remedy to the situation. Instead, I just sat there frozen and tried to do the best that I could to keep myself composed during the whole session. And obviously, you can imagine as the session progressed, my husband and my daughter carried on with their usual very happy banter of the perfect father and daughter relationship. And during all of this happening, I could see the counselor observing and taking in the scene, because it was obvious that I was left out. And I also realized that my lack of interaction between my daughter and I spoke volume against me. By the end of the session, I could already see that the counselor has been won over by the wolf because of various little things that happened during that session. Despite the fact that she already knew of the entire situation between me and my daughter, and between me and the wolf, and between the wolf and our child. And this is a situation that I already had explained to her the first time that I met with her, which happened like a few days after I brought my daughter into the facility. When the session ended, I said my goodbyes and left very quickly, and I immediately tried to call my lawyer and my therapist, who were both unavailable at the time. Luckily for me, eventually I was able to get hold of one of my neighbors, and she even had a hard time hearing what I was saying to her because I was crying so hard inside of my car. But she eventually helped to calm me down and validated that I should not have been placed in this situation in the first place. And so she advised me to call back the facility and explain that to them. I was not able to get hold of the counselor again, but instead I got hold of the director of the teenage unit, and she as well agreed with me that separate family counseling should take place. And again, while I was speaking to her, I was in a puddle. I was really having a meltdown. The whole thing had been extremely hard on me. That took place that very same day that we had that session. So immediately after speaking with the director, I tried to get in touch again with my child counselor. I left messages. For days I kept calling and leaving messages without getting hold of her at all. And I truly was left feeling like she was avoiding me. So I had no choice but to leave the weekend pass. And finally on Monday, 1st of May, 2017, I decided it will be best for me to just go physically to the rehab center and wait for as long as it took until the counselor received me and saw me so we could discuss things. And again, somehow, I have no idea how this could have happened. As I sat there waiting for the counselor to see me, I saw in the lobby my wolf and my daughter through the window, basically walking in, getting ready to walk into the center. And that's when I stood up and went to lock myself in the bathroom. And in my panic, I did not put the light on before entering the room. And once inside the bathroom as well, I was unable to figure out how to lock the door. So I had to hold on to the door in the dark, trying not to make any kind of noises. And unfortunately for me, it did not take long before I found myself in a tug of war, trying to keep the door closed against someone who needed to use the bathroom. And as I was pushing and pulling and doing all of that, that person was just not letting go at all. So eventually I felt I had no choice but to let go of the door handle. And that's when I saw that the person who was actually trying to get inside the bathroom was my daughter. And this was very, very awkward. And my daughter, she saw me and all she said was, "Oh," in surprise. And then she walked away without saying another word to me. And this broke my heart, because if there had been any remaining warmth or even just basic trust between my daughter and I know my normal and instinctive reaction would have been to pull her into the bathroom with me and to hug her, and really also to giggle with her about my own silliness, about what I just did, because there is humor in that. And but that instinct was not there, because I felt ashamed in front of her. I felt diminished. I felt humiliated, because I know from experience that my daughter enjoys my pain, and I know that she thinks that everything that is happening to me that is bad, I know that she thinks that I deserve this. And I felt very vulnerable for her to catch me in such an awkward position and situation. And I also knew that she would share it with her father to provide herself with something extra to help her bond with her father. And that made me feel, all sorts of ways, instead of a normal kind of feeling based on me being the mother and her the child, and me being responsible for her, and me, it just made me feel all sorts of ways than in control. And I just could not help myself. And as improbable as some of you would prefer it to be, I know this is the truth. Just like I know, based on a lot of things that she has done already, I know she will be throwing this very situation back in my face as an insult or as an accusation very soon, no matter what I'll be saying to her. So yes, both those situations have left me feeling ashamed of myself for not being able to act more mature and more dignified. The truth is that I still don't feel strong enough to be faced with the wolf. I have spent the large part of the last 6 months avoiding him, so seeing him during both of those times in such an unexpected way left me feeling ambushed. It was a real shock to my system, and I think I may even have had a mini panic attack, especially the first time, because the second time when I locked myself in the bathroom, it wasn't as strong as the first time, but I still had a meltdown by the time I got inside the car and drove off. The past few days have been really, really hard for me, and I have been spending an awful lot of time crying over both of those situations. The other reason why I also chose to hide is simply because I am fully aware that anything I do or say, or anything I do not do or do not say can be and will be either used against me or flipped around on me. And this awareness makes it impossible for me to know how to act. I know there isn't a situation with a third party involved the wolf will not try to triangulate me with, which makes me feel like there is very little I can do besides removing myself from what I now know is a constant playing field for the wolf. This is a game for him, and he's good at it, and I'm not. They're just, it's just as simple as that. So the only thing that I can think of doing is I need to remove myself. I cannot be there. I just can't, because this is not something I can win. And again, this is based on a constant theme that has been repeating throughout my life with him. It's always a case of damn if I do and damn if I don't. And with my daughter also playing against me to protect her father in every way she can while I'm trying to help her, makes everything even harder for me to find a safe corner to stand on to provide myself with some level of mental protection. But to go back to the counselor, finally yesterday, and that was Tuesday 2nd of May, the counselor, my daughter's counselor, called me. And much to my disappointment, she had a very tough stance towards me, telling me that there was nothing she could do to help me, even though the director said otherwise the previous week. She was just not going to facilitate a way for me and my wolf to have family sessions on alternate weeks. She basically was saying, do not put us in the middle of this. This is not something that we can help you with. And which was very surprising, because the director herself, when I spoke to her, said something completely different. She said that this was possible, this could be done. She even mentioned that they've had similar situations before, where usually they find ways to separate the couples in order for the sessions to happen for the good of the child. So I was very surprised by what the counselor was saying. And on top of that, she also told me that I was hurting my child by not supporting my child by refusing to be with her father during the family sessions. Her stance was a 90-degree reversal from when I first met her. A few days after I left my daughter into the facility, it seemed to me that she was talking to me as if I was really causing trouble. Anyway, I was hurt but not confused, neither was I surprised. Over the years, I've seen my wolf turn people against me in no time at all. I know he is gifted, and with his daughter also playing her part by blaming me for every single one of our problems, it's all becoming just a piece of cake for the wolf to look good and make me look bad, and possibly as if I am the bad parent. Between the two of them, I don't stand a chance. I mean, I just have to look at what happened with CPS. Yes, CPS did rule in my favor, but the CPS lady made it, really made it clear that she believed that my wolf, didn't mean to hurt his own child. He didn't mean to, that is just a case of just because both of us have very different ways of raising our child, and that caused the misunderstanding and the problem. That's basically what the CPS lady was convinced of. And she totally believed that that the wolf was really, really shocked to find out that she was doing drugs and that she was drinking. And the wolf even won her over because he was so amenable to pay for everything to make sure the child get the help, that the treatment that she needs. And that was the CPS own words. That's how she felt. She was completely won over by how willing he was to take care of everything and make everything all right, and to participate and to do everything he could. This was just, my eyes bugged out of my socket when I heard the CPS lady, say those things to me. And by the way, as of today, Wednesday, 3rd of May, 2017, my daughter is now out of rehab and into a sober living house where basically they're still kind of in treatment, but they live with other kids their own age who are going through the same treatment, and then they still go into counseling sessions and stuff like that, but they're very much kind of left to their own devices. And this was organized between the counselor and the child and the wolf. And I was left unable to stop this from happening because the counselor never took my calls or returned my calls, since last week until just yesterday. It was taken out of my hands. So hopefully you can see and imagine just how defeated I feel. It rankles to be faced over and over again with professionals in therapy or even in different agencies who are supposed to be helping, who are supposed to, you kind of expect them to understand a little bit. And yet, it's just come across very, very, in a very obvious manner that those people who are supposed to help, an awful lot of them, they just don't know anything about people who lack empathy, about people who mimic and mirror other people to get their way. They don't know about the level of selfishness of those pathological beings. It's very, very surprising to me, even though I've heard of it, obviously, even though I know, that this is the battle that all of us are facing here, in this community. It still takes me by surprise every time. And here I am trying to help my daughter. And yet here I am at the same time facing, not quite rejection, but facing obstacles that is making it extremely difficult for me to protect her. Even in a support group class that I've been attending for a while, all they do is try to reinforce in our minds, me and the other ladies that are, that are going very much through the very, very same things, because we have partners that are abusing us, even though it is in various different ways. But the side effects are still the same. Our situation is still very much the same. And yet we have those people in charge of those counseling sessions and in charge of our support group that literally spend their time trying to reinforce in our minds that we are weak and we need to take responsibility for allowing ourselves to be caught in those situations. Apparently being uninformed is a weakness. Apparently being kind is a weakness. Apparently being a nurturer is a weakness. Apparently giving people the benefit of the doubt is a weakness. I mean, who knew? This blows my mind. I mean, who knew? This blows my mind. As you can see, there are a few issues that are easily identifiable in what happened to me this week. Most obvious is the wolf's ability to charm and convince people of his false image and how easily he manipulates and triangulates as well. But what fascinates me the most in all of this is how he manages to always take over situation to make himself look good. This is another typical pattern of the wolf, which is very subtle but also is very, very effective. This maneuver, I think, help establish a stack of credibility on the side of the abuser compared to the side of the victim in the eyes of any third party and in my case, in the eyes of my own children. Because of that, I can see why people always testify positively on their behalf by always saying what good people they are. This makes it very hard for the victim to get people to believe what is happening to them, even in scenarios like I have just described, when other people barely know the abuser. This tactic of taking over is a constant invalidation of the partner. Year after year of this happening eventually not only erases the partner's positive actions in the eyes of anyone else, but this also subtly forces the victim to feel a sense of isolation. And usually this creeps inside the victim or the target without them really fully understanding where that comes from, or without them really fully even knowing it's actually happening. And that feeling of isolation is inevitable in the long term, because most of us do need acknowledgement and validation in order to learn, in order to evolve, in order as well to feel relevant in our own lives. It's a natural kind of feedback that we need and we thrive on and we expect. And, you know, after years and years of not getting it, it became part of just the bigger picture of the isolation that eventually took place. Throughout our years together, I always felt it was normal to always make my husband look capable, look good, and elevate him in people's eyes. It never bothered me if I was left in the dark, with people not being aware of my role or acknowledge me. Also, it never occurred to me to pay close attention to see if there was any reciprocation taking place towards me in any way. I never checked for that. I thought I did not need to be acknowledged back. I felt that I was strong enough, and it will be petty for me to be bickering over that kind of thing. So over the years, every time there's been a problem or a crisis, I would always efficiently fix everything. And then somehow the wolf would come in and almost always at the last minute, always manage to take credit for everything, which always gave him the opportunity to play the role of the hero or the devoted husband or the role of the doting father, with everybody being super impressed with him, always. And this is a dance I have knowingly encouraged, I suppose, and participated in, not realizing that I was putting myself at a great disadvantage, because with people like that, they are so selfish. It's all about them. And, well, basically, I was an adversary. Let's face it, I was the adversary. You know, he was competing with me, and I was the person to put down. So I was busy and trying to be the fantastic partner, not realizing that he was, you know, he wasn't doing the same for me. Not realizing that I was the competition to be crushed. Looking back at all of this, I can't help wonder if there was a way I could have avoided, you know, him always taking over things like this. And just like he has now, by taking over the care of our daughter, who let's face it, the truth is, she has become an alcohol and drug addict, thanks to his malicious intentions. And the more I think about it, I'm not able to come up with a different way of doing things. And honestly, I don't know even if it is possible to avoid, you know, for me to have been able to avoid this kind of situation. Because sometimes it felt like even life itself conspired and keep conspiring to make it easy for him to do that kind of thing. You know, with his name being on every important document, and with him paying for everything, as well as society always deferring to him as the head of the family in everything, it is impossible for me to prevent, or to have been, you know, in the past, to even have prevented him for taking over even if I had been aware of all of this and his ploys and his tactics, and tried to prevent him from taking over. I don't think I would have been able to. For example, with our daughter rehab situation, the insurance is paying for her treatment, but the thing is, the wolf is the guarantor of that insurance. And that alone gives him a lot of, gives him an awful lot of power that I did not understand and was not prepared for. All I can imagine maybe is that the only way to avoid this constant takeover by a selfish, self-centered kind of partner is for them to actually be matched with maybe women or partner that are very strong, very domineering. They have those kind of personality that makes it impossible to either be ignored or to be patronized. But then again, when I don't believe that those pathological people are interested in those strong personalities. That's why they target people like me, people who want other people to thrive and give room for other people to be who they are, and try to accept other people for who they are, and with their quirks and with their and with their fault, and just try to influence gently for better outcomes. And I think this is why we end up in those situations. It's not because we're weak, it's not because we're stupid. It really is because a lot of us do understand that we are different, and being different is not such a bad thing. We don't necessarily want to be in relationship just to dominate others and wipe their traits, even if those traits are negative. We try very hard to see how we can work with that, or how we can gently steer things to happen in a way that is beneficial for all involved. And obviously we lose. We just lose. But I can tell you that now that I understand all of this, it makes it a very strong motivation for me to remain independent for the rest of my life. I would hate from now on for anyone to either have a say in anything I do, or have their name on anything of mine again. Most definitely, this broad over here will remain independent till the day I die.